Good evening, everyone. I see we are now streaming live on YouTube, so I'd like to welcome everyone to our Prescott Town Council meeting for Monday, May 17th, 2021. Start off with item 1, the call to order this evening, and move right to item 2, the approval of tonight's agenda. Recommendation reads as usual that the agenda for the council meeting of May 17th, 2021 be approved as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Young. Any comments, questions on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations from members of council this evening? Seeing no. And item 4, presentations. And we do have one presentation tonight under 4.1 with Connect Youth. We have Robin Holmes, the interim executive director of that great organization that does such fine work for our entire area. Robin, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. Great to see you. And with that, I'll turn it over to you for your presentation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to share my screen so you can all see our presentation. Can everybody see that screen okay? Is that good? Perfect. Okay. So just being mindful of time, I would just like to thank council for allowing me to present tonight. The purpose of my presentation is just to make sure, of course, that everybody is aware of Connect Youth. And for those of you who are already aware of our services, to make sure that you're up to speed on what we've been doing for the duration of the COVID pandemic and how our services have changed over the past 12 months. Can't believe we've been in this long, but that's what I'll be doing tonight. So as mentioned, I am Robin Holmes. I'm the interim executive director for Connect Youth. And I will be just walking everybody through our programming, updating everyone on what we're noticing in regards to the current state of homelessness of youth in Leeds and Grenville, and speaking briefly to some quick impacts of COVID-19 on our service delivery. So for those who are not aware of Connect Youth, our agency's mission is to assist, support, and refer young people in need, and to advocate for youth in partnership with our communities. Our agency was founded in 2001, so we are coming up next month on a very exciting milestone of 20 years of service to the community. We operate core drop-in programs, typically at South Grenville High School, the WAY, which is the Wellness Access for Youth, and the Youth Housing Program. Our core programming is drop-in style services. This is what most of you have probably heard of us for. This is what we run out of South Grenville High School. We have been operating that program the longest, which started out with one single staff person out of the high school. Now we have several staff people. We have 8 staff in total. And the core program is essentially designed to provide a safe space where youth can access our trained staff. In that facility, we typically have an entire classroom at South Grenville where we provide access to basic needs items. We have a clothing closet, food items, hygiene supply, and most importantly, we also recognize when youth are in crisis or in need of referrals to community agencies. If we recognize that a youth is in need of a referral to support for mental health or addiction services, justice-related programming, we then assist them with making referrals and the subsequent supports that are required. Oftentimes, transportation is a barrier for many of our rural youth, so we do a lot of assistance with transportation. And of course, we also offer accompaniment to appointments to make sure that youth never feel like they're alone in a moment of crisis. We also offer in that location presentations or educational sessions from community partners such as CSE Consulting, the Health Unit. If the youth expressed interest in a particular community agency that they'd like to hear from, we reach out and bring that agency in to make sure that youth have access to all programming across Leeds and Grenville. As I mentioned, typically our location for the core programming is South Grenville High School. Unfortunately, because of the restrictions that have come out of the COVID pandemic, we have needed to move this program into a community model for the duration of COVID. We did temporarily offer programming in partnership with the YMCA of Eastern Ontario, and we also offer the core programming at St. Paul's Church in Prescott, as well as St. Lawrence Anglican Church in Brockville. So we have very much worked to ensure that you still have access to this programming despite the restrictions with the high school. Secondly, we offer the Wellness Access for Youth. This is a partnership that is new to our agency within the past several years. This is a partnership with Kemptville District Hospital, the Health Unit, and Children's Mental Health. The purpose of this was to ensure that youth who may attend the emergency room at Kemptville District Hospital or who may visit a physician in North Grenville have clear access to pathways that will engage them with our services, with children's mental health, and basically ensure that there's those clear-cut partnerships between the health community service agencies such as the hospital and the health unit, and with the remaining community partners in Leeds and Grenville. Our staff person, Dan, is very proud to be up in Kemptville serving the North Grenville youth, and we're very happy to be up in that area. Moving on to our housing program, which is currently booming. It has grown faster than we ever thought it would. We now offer 5 apartment units for youth. We have 2 in Brockville, 1 in Kemptville, 1 in Prescott, and 1 in Spencerville. The units are designed to provide short-term 21-day stays, and during that stay, youth are provided with intensive case management and support from our housing staff. Some of these supports that they receive are, of course, the provision of basic needs items. Many youth arrive to us with just the clothes on their back. They don't have any food or any other belongings, so we assist them with obtaining those items. We provide life skills training, as many of these youth have never lived independently. So they require education in areas such as budgeting and meal planning. Some have never even shopped at a grocery store before. So we walk them through the many facets of education required to live independently in our community. Again, in this program, we continue to provide referrals to community agencies. And of course, we assist them with the housing search in hopes of linking them up with long-term sustainable housing. Since July 1st of 2020, we have seen 100 referrals to our youth housing program. We have housed in our units 34 of these youth. And this is where I always get the question, well, what happened to the other youth that you didn't house? What happens is if we are unable to house youth in our units, we either refer them on to other agencies that can house them. We have very strong partnerships with Victim Services and the Warming Center that assist us with temporary accommodation. And what we ultimately do is if youth can find somewhere else to stay temporarily, say a friend or family, we provide outreach support to them while they remain in the community. In that, the supportive interactions, when we're providing outreach support to youth, whether that be through referral or provision of basic needs, we have provided 936 supportive interactions in that same time frame. So since July 1st of 2020. So we're very, very busy. Our staff are hopping every day. These are just very quickly the deficiencies we've noticed in the housing market. COVID has definitely changed the housing market in terms of the long-term affordable housing for youth. Previously, as I mentioned, the 21-day stay allowed us to assist the youth with moving into long-term housing. Now it's just unrealistic. In that 21 days, there's very few units available, and those that are available are financially unattainable for our youth, so we're unable to move them in usually within that 21 days. We also noticed that there's a lack of a multi-tiered approach, so we don't have access to emergency, transitional, and long-term housing units for youth, which our agency is working very hard to address that gap in the community. And we also have a need for an increased understanding regarding homelessness. So this is why I'm always so lucky to be able to present to council, because we want to make sure that awareness is there, that there are many, many homeless youth in our community in need of service, that it's everybody's responsibility to address this issue, and that the more we work together, the more success we'll see throughout Leeds and Grenville in ensuring that youth don't remain homeless. Again, these are the barriers that we continue to see. These barriers existed before COVID. They have unfortunately just been compounded during the pandemic. The need for transportation, technology for youth that were already isolated, again, that has just been increased over the past 12 months. For some youth, their only connection is from their school environment, and they haven't had that in the same way for the past year. So we are working very, very hard to connect with youth online, to provide them with alternate ways of engaging with our agency and ensuring that they still feel supported during this difficult time. Again, affordability continues to be an issue, and stigma. Many landlords or individuals willing to rent to youth are still very cautious. They think that youth cause trouble, youth can't be trusted, they all come high. There are definitely issues when you are housing someone who's never lived independently, but they're not insurmountable. And that's what we're working very hard to educate our community on. Finally, as I mentioned, some specific impacts of COVID have been the changes to the service delivery model. Like I mentioned, we haven't been in our typical office space for more than a year now. That has been very, very difficult for our staff to continue providing services to youth that are homeless when we don't have a solid place to work out of ourselves. We are very fortunate to have a temporary space out of St. Lawrence Anglican Church in Brockville. But again, providing service to youth throughout Leeds and Grenville is very difficult without a permanent space for our staff to have their desk and have their belongings set up. It poses some challenges. And again, the need for creativity and establishing new ways to connect with and engage with youth. We have been very, very present on social media, TikTok, other forms of social media, because that's where the youth are spending their time. They're at home, they're online, and that's where we reach out to them so they know we're still here and we're still helping them. So I just end with a quote, because I know I'm mindful of time during council meetings that we only have a brief amount of time to share with you what our services are. My main intention for tonight is just to make council aware that throughout COVID, we've still been there. Our staff have really been resilient during this time. We've been out in the community, and we've been fortunate that we have not seen a break in our service delivery, despite the many challenges of the past 12 months. So any chance I can get to really give a kudos to my staff, then I will do so tonight. And I would just like to thank council and the town of Prescott for your ongoing support. And we're very happy to continue serving youth in Prescott. And I will mention, just before I open myself up to questions, that the one exciting thing Connect Youth is doing to ensure that we remain mobile is we are in the final stages of purchasing an RV unit. So we recognize that while we're all at this point really focusing on when will COVID be done, we need to keep operating as if it won't be, that there will be continued challenges, restrictions to service delivery. So what we realized is we needed to come up with a way that we can mobilize our services and take our services to the farthest points of Leeds and Grenville to reach the most rural youth. So we are purchasing a Class C RV unit that will allow us to really just take the show on the road to go deliver, whether it be recreational or artistic programs in partnerships with other agencies, or if we want to, as an example, go out to Elgin to the high school and roll into a parking lot with other service providers and just let youth know that we're there, we can still provide service. We're basically creating a mobile office, which is very exciting. So we can't wait to get it on the road, to really be out there and reaching youth in the farthest corners of Leeds Grenville. And we couldn't continue to do the work that we do without your support. So we thank you for that over the years. As I said, 20 years is no small feat, and Prescott has always been there for us. So we thank you very much. I will leave my contact information if anybody needs to reach me, but I'm definitely open to questions if anybody has any.
Thanks so much, Robin. That was a fantastic presentation, and it's great to see, especially with those the expanded number of units available at a lot of key locations in the United Counties as well, with Kempville. I think it was Kempville, Brockville, Spencerville, and Prescott, I believe now, with the 5. And that's incredible, because there's such a need there. And same with the RV. I mean, we've had issues with, especially to go back to that homelessness issue as well. We've seen that most notably in Brockville, but it's definitely a regional issue. And any way you can get the services out to areas where there's some congregation and so forth, that's some great thinking. So kudos again to you and your staff and everyone with Connect Youth for supporting your expansions and supporting all your great work through this tough time of COVID. So I will open up for comments, questions from members of council. Anything this evening? Councillor Jansman.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Thank you very much, Robin, for that presentation. And I know we have, and happy anniversary, by the way. 20 years is very much a big deal. I know we have spoke individually and as a group around the table of wanting to engage our youth more. And we had various different conversations of perhaps maybe entertaining a youth ambassador on our council or on one of our committees to have a voice at the table, that kind of thing. Perhaps an unfair question, Robin, but just to put you on the spot here, maybe, in your opinion, how can councils not necessarily just this council, but councils in United Counties, how can councils do more to engage our youth and be part of a solution to those who aren't, who are in need?
I think it's a very fair question. I think ideas such as having a youth ambassador are fantastic because ultimately our agency has very much recognized that we can't provide services that respond to the needs of youth unless they're really driven by the youth themselves. So whether that be, you know, having a youth ambassador on the council or having a small group of youth that you kind of elect to bring forth ideas, I think that's a great idea. I think being mindful of the fact that some initiatives tend to be driven through the school boards, which is fantastic. We have amazing school boards in our area, but there's a lot of youth that are underrepresented because they're not attending school. Most youth are not attending school in a regular fashion right now. Some aren't attending at all, and they've never had that point of engagement. So finding ways to engage with those kind of underserved, the marginalized youth that don't typically get their voices heard, you get some really interesting perspective from youth that have lived through homelessness and lived through addiction and challenges. And one of the things we're doing right now is reaching out to youth in the LGBTQ2S community to really get their feedback about, we've recognized that there's gaps in services for that population, but we also know that to address it, we need their feedback to ensure that it's meeting their needs. So anything you can do to get their voice, and to bring that back to council is phenomenal. We are very fortunate to have partners with many community agencies like the Y and R&J Youth Services and Children's Mental Health. And anytime that council needs feedback from youth on a specific issue, we are happy to help you coordinate that and to help bring forth kind of a panel of professionals, if you will, that can really solicit for that youth feedback for you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have talked about a youth advisory committee at different times in the past on council, but I don't think we've just ever really gone completely through with it. I don't think there's any reason why we didn't, but I know we were approached. Councillor Bursey from the city of Brockville approached us quite a number of years ago, and he established it in Brockville. And I got to admit, it's so long ago now, I can't remember why we didn't follow through with it, but it's always seemed like a great idea. Because as Robin mentions, you really need to hear from youth to see what they want from a municipality and what services. So I just leave that open for everyone tonight. Maybe we can bring that back and have a discussion about that in a future meeting. See if we could establish something like that, whether an ambassador or an advisory group of some sort. But I know it's an excellent point. Other comments, questions? Councillor Young, please.
I was just wondering, excuse me, I was just wondering about the homeless numbers. Are they increasing during COVID?
We've seen an increase this year for sure. Yeah. And I think the one thing we've seen is that we're receiving referrals from a larger geographic area. We've actually received referrals this year from Cornwall. We've had youth that are being discharged from CHEO that we've received referrals for, individuals being released because, of course, being mindful that our program serves youth ages 16 to 25 for the housing program. We receive a lot of referrals from the jail in Brockville, from Ottawa Carleton Detention Center. So the awareness of our program is growing, and along with that, our numbers have increased. So unfortunately, yes, our numbers have increased this year. I think a lot of that too is simply due to the fact that the housing market has seen such a shift this year during COVID, and where we would have previously been able to put youth into a one-bedroom apartment on an income from Ontario Works or ODSP, which many of them rely on, that income no longer covers a unit such as that. So we're seeing youth have to engage in some pretty dangerous situations just to have a place to lay their head at night. A lot of them are engaging in substance use because it pairs them up with somebody who might be willing to house them for the night. Youth are involved in human trafficking, and we're fortunate to have support from agencies such as Victim Services, but the climate has very much shifted in terms of what youth are having to do to find safe places to reside.
Very sad in this day and age.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Other comments, questions from members of council this evening? Councillor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. You mentioned you were working with St. Paul's Anglican Church in Prescott. St. Paul's is the United Church. The Anglican Church is St. John's. I'm curious which one of the two you're working with.
It's Councillor Ostrander can correct me, but I believe it's St. Paul's that we're working with. That's a typo in my slide. I do apologize for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. We have been very fortunate to receive the support of the churches over the past year. It has been one of the stable kind of foundations we've had over COVID when everything else has been up in the air. But Councillor McConnell, I do appreciate that correction, and I will make that immediately in my PowerPoint.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. Other comments, questions? Councillor Ostrander, please. Oh, you're still muted, Mike.
Since I'm a member of Connect Youth, it's more of a comment than it is a question for Robin, because I just find that with the problem with the schooling this year, with the kids being out of school more than they're actually physically in school, is really sort of magnifying a lot of the problems, just due to the fact that it's some of the kids who don't have stable home lives or don't have a home life find that schooling is sort of with their friends is that's the support they get, and I think they're missing that. They don't see their friends because they live far apart their homes and that. So that's been a big problem as far as I guess you could say entertaining them, particularly after school program and that. And we've actually, Robin, correct me if you want, but we've actually had to shut down the after school program just for the time being, but because it appears that there'll be no in-person schooling for the rest of this school year, May, June, that we know of. So, and that's been tough on kids. And sometimes it's the little things that we don't realize that they depend on, and their friendship of each other quite often solves their problems before they get to Connect Youth, before they get to the police or the other service agencies. So it's just one of those things that I guess it's part of the COVID dilemma. It's complicated things, and the sooner we're out of it, the better. But anyway, the schooling is, I think, a linchpin when it comes to not having it.
Yes, thank you. We did. We definitely saw that despite our efforts to kind of mobilize our drop-in program into the community, we were seeing that youth who were attending our drop-in program after school were saying that because they didn't have access to us during the day, typically we would offer a drop-in program at the lunch hour at South Granville. Youth who were attending during COVID, our after school hour drop-ins, were saying that for some of them, the meal that they were provided at that hour was the first time they had eaten during the day. That situation would have been assisted when they could attend at the lunch hour. They would get a healthy meal at lunch, but because schools aren't in session in the normal fashion, that some of them weren't receiving meals until they could reach support after school, which for some of them was 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So as Councillor Ostrander said, it's definitely highlighting some issues and some gaps in the community, and we're working hard to address them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ostrander. Thanks very much again, Ms. Holmes. Any other comments, questions tonight for Robin?
I do.
Councillor McConnell, and then Councillor Shankar, please.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. We've been discussing and we're moving forward with a bus, a trial bus thing that we're going to use down along the river here. And we've also discussed how to get that ridership going. We've discussed maybe some free or discounted passes for various riders. I think perhaps maybe Connect Youth would be a good place to put some of those free riderships. It might come in very handy or very useful to youth that have no transportation, especially between Prescott and Brockville. So I think we should maybe look into that as the bus thing progresses.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. Councillor Shankar, please.
Thank you. Robin, congratulations on 20 years. It's 20 good years and really supporting our youth in our area. I'm glad to see the expansion and the forward thinking with the RV. I think that's fantastic. One question I have for you, is there an issue in this area with self-harm amongst the youth? Because we have a couple of resolutions that we could support in our consent agenda about a national 3-digit suicide and prevention hotline initiative. I'm wondering if that would be something that would be worthwhile to support for our area.
Absolutely. I think any initiative like that is very much worthwhile. Anything that increases or improves the ease of access for mental health services amongst youth is a fantastic initiative. I think we continue to see mental health concerns and self-harm and suicide amongst our youth. We are very fortunate to have Children's Mental Health and Lanark Leeds and Grenville Addictions and Mental Health in our community, both agencies that provide phenomenal supports for youth. However, I think any initiative, as I said, that increases an ability for a youth to just pick up the phone or seek online support, I think those are always wonderful initiatives. I always encourage council, when you're investing dollars, to ensure that you just consult with the local agencies that are already serving the youth locally, just to ensure that they're fully aware of what that new initiative will be. But again, I've always found that they're very supportive to anything that improves the ease of access. We recognized over the past year that for some youth, as you said, and with Councillor McConnell's comment about transportation being an issue, it's not realistic for some youth to just be able to attend an office and seek services. We had a young individual call us this week and say that they were currently walking from Prescott to Brockville. Thankfully, they called us and we went and picked them up to take them to services. But any of those initiatives that it's very much a digital connection. One, it allows for very anonymous help to be sought from youth. It's not identifying. They can seek help for a full gamut of issues without having to identify themselves. Sometimes that anonymity allows them to just seek that initial contact, to develop that clinical relationship with somebody on the other end that then will eventually steer them to a local agency. So I think those types of wraparound supports they're very much needed right now. Again, as I mentioned, the isolation is increasing because of COVID. And I think if we see now that the school boards are essentially proposing options for continued online learning into next year, this isn't going away anytime soon. So anything you can do to allow youth to seek help from their home is a phenomenal way to invest money.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shankar. Any further comments before we let Robin go? I think we're good then. So Robin, thanks again for that great presentation. Happy 20 years, and please extend our congratulations as well there to the rest of the staff and board of Connect Youth. You guys do such an incredible job, and over this past year, obviously things have really been pushed to the limit, and thanks for continuing to be there and continuing to not only offer the services you do, but to expand them at a time when they're most needed. So if we could leave off with this tonight, if everyone's okay with this, Councillor Jansman did mention about the youth engagement. If maybe we could bring that back to a future council meeting, just so we could kind of maybe look at some options there, and maybe even have staff contact Connect Youth offline and see if there's anything else that we could do there to help support them further, and bring that back for a discussion 2 to 4 weeks, whatever. I don't think we'll need much staff prep work on it. I think we'll just have a discussion about possible options if that works. Is everyone okay with that? Adding that to a future agenda? I'm not hearing anybody say no, so okay, we'll do that. And again, Robin, thanks so much for joining us this evening, and that great presentation, and all the best going forward. And if you ever need anything, we've been there, as you mentioned, from the beginning with Connect Youth, and you ever need anything from us now, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present tonight, and again for your ongoing support of Connect Youth, and whatever we can do to assist council moving forward with your efforts to include youth, we're happy to do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and have a great night. Take care.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, and item 5 this evening, delegations, nothing on the agenda. 6 minutes of the previous council meetings. We do have one item there under 6.1. That's the council minutes from our meeting on May 3rd. Recommendation is that the council minutes dated May 3rd, 2021 be accepted as presented. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councilor McConnell, second by Councilor Ostrander. Any discussion on that set of minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thanks, everyone. Motion is carried. 7, communications and petitions, nothing there this evening. 8, under consent reports, recommendation reads that all items listed under the consent reports section of the agenda be accepted as presented. And this, of course, just involves 8.1, our information package this evening. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Shankar, seconded by Councilor Burton. And Councilor Shankar, I'm assuming you're going to raise, I think it was items 6, 7, and 8 in that report for us supporting.
Yeah, I would like to do that if I may.
Absolutely. We usually bring this back for the resolution the following meeting. Are you okay with that? We'll bring it back in 2 weeks' time, and we'll have the if I can get my words out, the resolution prepared by our clerk.
Perfect.
Everyone good with that? It seems like a great initiative to support. Okay, all sounds good. Any other comments on anything on the information package this evening? Seeing no, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. And 9 this evening, committee reports, no committee reports. 10, mayor's portion this evening. I do have one formal item there under 10.1, and then I have a few just my regular comments, but that 10.1 is just resolution of support that I brought forward at the last meeting on federal government providing transparency with regard to plans to reopen the Canada-US border. Recommendation is that council support the corporation of the town of Fort Erie's resolution dated April 27, 2021 regarding the federal government providing transparency with regard to plans to reopen the Canada-US border. Could someone move that, please? Moved by Councilor Shankar, seconded by Councilor Jansman. Any discussion? I will note that we haven't had any further discussions with that border mayors group of late, and not much feedback on this at all, actually. But it does seem that there's a little more momentum moving towards this, and we are going to start coming out of this as of June 2nd. All fingers crossed. And hopefully the federal government will provide some information here in the not too distant future on how they're going to reopen the border. But of course, if everyone's noted in their information package, our bridge is going to be closed for a considerable amount of time the next few months as well for construction. So even when they do get it open, you don't want to be over there after 8 p.m. at night most evenings. So that's something we'll have to make sure we make clear when things open up again as well. But any further discussion on that item? All those in favor? Motion is carried. And just regular mayor's reports, just a couple of items. Attended joint services on May the 4th. Attended a couple of meetings of the Eastern Ontario Regional Network Group. One session last week was as a board member. Another one was just as a local mayor, as EORN is trying to round up all the mayors in Eastern Ontario to really put a push on with regards to the federal government and the provincial government for funding the GIG project, which will bring GIG connections, internet across Eastern Ontario. It'll actually, EORN has essentially the background and the engineering and the work ready to go that EORN can connect all of Eastern Ontario with hardwired gigabit connections to all homes, or about 98% of homes, actually. The information is online with the GIG project at the EORN website at eorn.ca. Interesting to look at. We are, of course, a funding member of EORN with regards to the broadband project, cellular broadband project going on now. And the GIG project is something that the EORN board has really taken on because of we're all well aware of the significant issues with connectivity across Eastern Ontario, especially during COVID. So we're really putting a push on to try to make sure that we can access funding from the federal and provincial governments. It's something that really needs to happen. But at any rate, I attended a couple meetings there in that regard. Worth looking up if you get a moment at the EORN website. And Also wanted to note the regular health unit meetings on Fridays at 10 a.m. They've been very informative. I want to thank our MPP, Steve Clark, for ensuring that those were started, and thank our health unit staff for being involved and updating everyone with what's happening locally. And also I want to thank the health unit, Township of Augusta, volunteers, our own volunteers here in the town of Prescott, our staff at the town of Prescott, for putting together a fantastic vaccination clinic last Tuesday, May 11th. Very busy all day, a lot of happy faces, a lot of people very relieved to be able to get their first dose. And just an inspiring day, actually, to be involved in down there. It does sort of indicate that we are, despite the extension of the lockdown, that we are moving towards the end of the pandemic, and we're seeing some real light at the end of the tunnel. So I really want to thank our staff for doing such an amazing job and helping host the health unit and everyone down there that day. Just a great team effort all the way around, and really can't thank the health unit more for putting this on. I think we vaccinated about 280 people on Tuesday, and there will be more clinics coming up. We should be hosting more in Prescott in the weeks ahead. We don't have a date yet, but we're looking at possibly establishing some future dates before the end of this week. So again, hats off to everyone involved, and we'll make sure everyone's notified in advance, well in advance again, for when we host our follow-up clinics in the coming weeks. So that's it for me this evening. So we'll move along to item 11, outside boards, committees, and commissions. And as always, start with Councilor Burton. Leanne, please.
Thank you. And nothing from me. Thank you.
Well, that was quick. Moving on to Councilor Jasmine, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. The Planning Advisory Committee met last week, and it was a good meeting. Another CIP applicant approved, and along with a sign variance application. So all good there. The BIA met as well last week, and continued their discussions on the beautification plans of our downtown. So very active, always an active discussion. Justin presented digital Main Street update as it's coming to a close, and Dana used it as an opportunity to thank him for his execution of that program on the BIA and on the town's behalf. And the BIA is really quite happy that Tracy was the advocate there of getting our participation in that program, because it was indeed very successful for the whole region. The province-wide BIA is introducing a new initiative, so stay tuned. Our local BIA is going to participate in that as well, and it has a lot of promise. So that's kind of exciting. But the main thing I want to mention is that AGM is scheduled and confirmed, and it's Monday, May 31st at 6 o'clock, if anyone's interested. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Jasmine. Councilor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I'm going to sound like a broken record here tonight, but stuff continues to go on, not at Walker House, but through Walker House. Susan has a very good program of things that you can participate in. Give her a call at Walker House, and she'll be able to fill you in on what you can participate in, or answer any questions you might have. The library is open to door pickup only, but it's open from 11 till 5 daily, Monday through Friday. You can call into the library, give them an idea of an author maybe you're interested in, or a particular book or a series that you've been looking at or been reading before, and they will be happy to put those together for you, and you can pick them up at the door. Same thing applies for movies. They have movies that they loan out at the library as well. Fridays have become freebie Fridays at the library, and at the outside of the door, you'll find a collection of extra copies, discontinued pieces, books that have been donated to the library that we already have, There's some movies there. There's some books, talking books, that type of thing. And they're free. Just go up, and the weather permitting, they'll be outside and you can help yourself. Shakespeare meets Wednesday night, and I guess we'll see where we go from there. And that's it for me, Mayor Todd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. Councilor Ostrander, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. May 4th, day after our last meeting, was the second of those Solicitor General workshops on the Police Service Board transition. And the chair, Stan Caskey, and myself were both in attendance on Zoom, and fairly lengthy. It was about an hour and a half. The young lady from the Sol Gens was very knowledgeable, very informative. It's one of those where they bombard you with a lot of facts and that, and you try to sort it out. It was attended by probably 30 some municipalities from around Ontario. So the Q&A at the end of it went on for half an hour, 40 minutes at least, and brought out some good points. A lot of them relating to Northern Ontario with Native communities and how the representation would get divided up, I guess, on those accounts. One other item on the municipal drug strategy that you mentioned last meeting. Couple of presentations coming up on June 2nd and June 9th, 2 Wednesday nights in a row, by the Brockville group. And they're going to include anybody from down this way that's interested. It's going to be a Zoom presentation. I'm not sure whether it's 6 or 7 is the start date on those 2 nights. I'm going to make sure that you're aware of it, and information and links so that anybody who wants to attend can. I also hear a rumor that Deputy Mayor Deschamps from Petersburg Cardinal is now part of the group, and that's good to hear. So I'll make sure I'm in touch with him and Mayor Malanka and Augusta, and just that we get some seating down here from Grenville County, and make sure we can see what's going on and bring us up to speed, because we've been out of the picture for 2 or 3 years, I guess. It's been a while, but so that's it for me for tonight. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councilor Ostrander, and thanks for taking on that MDS role there. That's going to be very valuable as we move forward and possibly partner with Brockville. Just a quick update for everyone on the policing issue. Gary Dyke, the CAO of North Grenville, has been taking the lead on that for us, as we agreed with that mayor's meeting and PSB members meeting we had a few weeks ago. We did get an extension. I guess that was just secured today. Almost everyone's been getting an extension for this right now. It's the province has kind of pushed this back to starting instead of fall of 2021. They're looking more like January next year. So they're allowing extensions into the end of June or start of July even with the submissions. So Gary is doing that submission, reporting back to the mayors and the PSB members of the five municipalities here in Grenville, and we'll have that going back in the not too distant future. But it's a little later than that. I think it was June 7th was the initial deadline for that. So it'll be a little later than that now, but it's all moving forward very well, and no hitches locally anyway. So just so everyone's aware of how that's moving. Councilor Shankar, please.
Nothing really to report. I would just like to point out that I did take a little look at the beach, Kelly's Beach, and it's coming along really nicely. Just to make that point, I know that's not, and I'm just very proud of us hosting that pop-up vaccination clinic, because I know there's a lot of people in town that really can't, that don't have wheels or don't have a ride to Brockville or Kempville, and with that helps. And I did notice that they posted that they're coming back in August. I would assume that's all the second shots. I don't know if someone can answer that, Matthew or yourself, Mayor Todd. But you did say something that we're looking forward to more pop-up clinics in the next few weeks. So I wasn't sure what the dates were for that. If you happen to know.
Yeah, what I heard last week, I'd have to confirm it fully with Dr. Stewart, but they were talking about further ones within the next, not second round, but first round as they get as they expand the age groups into younger people and doing more first rounds. But I don't have anything confirmed on that. I just know from the health unit update today that they were looking at finalizing some dates later this week. But I'll find out for sure with Paul in the next little bit. I'll send her a note and see what's up with that.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. You probably noted in the paper the last week or so that St. Lawrence Lodge has received a grant of almost $2.5 million. The grant will be used to update the HVAC system. The majority of the work will be done on the roof of the building, so it's not going to be a huge inconvenience for the residents. New controls and new lines will be run through the building, but at the end of it, we will have a much better system that's can be controlled in more ways and modernized. This is one of the safeguards against the spreading of a disease like COVID. So the provincial government funded this for us. We were very appreciative of getting most of our requests processed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Great to note that, and that influx of funding, in addition to what's happening with Wellington House here in Prescott as well, shows that the provincial government's definitely investing in long-term care right here at the moment. Anyways, it's great to see these both investments here locally that'll help a lot of local people. So thanks very much, everyone, and we will move on to item 12 tonight, staff. We do have a number of reports there. 12.1 is staff report 44-2021, cancellation of emergency exercises in 2021. Recommendation reads as follows: that council support the Township of Elizabethtown Kitley's resolution requesting that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario advocate for the cancellation of the emergency exercise as a compulsory requirement of the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act for the year 2021, and that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario formally request to waive the annual emergency exercise for the year 2021 be provided directly to the Minister, the Solicitor General, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Township of Elizabethtown Kitley, the Solicitor General, Premier Ford, and the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Matthew, I think this was a Tracy report, but did you want to comment on this briefly?
Certainly. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So what Elizabethtown Kitley is putting forward here is really in response to the fact that we've gone through over a year now of being in an emergency situation. Last year, the province decided to cancel it, but not until September 4th. So it really left it quite late in the year for us to kind of be able to set that aside. So we're trying to do it a little bit earlier in the year, make that request through AMO, as well as certainly directly to the Solicitor General and Premier of Ontario. And really that's what you're seeing before you this evening. So we have been meeting on a regular basis. I think when we're finally through this emergency of COVID, that having an opportunity to debrief and really look at what works well and what we can continue to improve upon is definitely time well spent. But I think with everything else that's currently going on, and the fact that we're still in this emergency type situation and reacting to it every several weeks as things change from the provincial level, then I think really that's with the impetus for asking for the cancellation for 2021 as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Any comments, questions on this evening from members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Should we also send a copy of that, though, to all Leeds Grenville municipalities?
Sure, we can do that if you'd like.
I'm assuming Elizabethtown Kitley sent this out to all of us to begin with. We might as well just send it to Dolly's Grenville as well.
Okay.
Thank you. So 12.2 presentation tonight on property standards and the associated bylaws. Sean, I guess it's over to you.
Okay, so this will be the first time I'm going to try to share the screen. Hopefully it'll go as smooth as I hope. Have we got something on there now or no?
Not yet.
How's that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there we go. Sorry about this, guys. So this is really the first presentation of the first step of the next movement within the bylaw department. As you know, since I came here a little over 3 years ago, we've been working fairly steady, moving each step, first starting with the building department and then moving on into the bylaw department, into moving the progress to try to create a fully modern department that answers the questions that the public is actually expecting now in relation to the services that building and bylaw deliver. So what do we really want from our bylaws? Okay, we want them to work for the greater good of the community. Okay, we want them to be resolved, and this is really important, in a timely manner and consistently. We want them not to be a burden upon the general taxpayer, because there's no point having a whole bunch of bylaws that just add more bills to the general taxpayer when they're not using any of the services. And we want them to be relatively straightforward in their language and their expectations, so that you don't need to have a law degree in order to read them. We also still don't want a system where the officers are answerable for their actions or their inactions, because I think that's important to note. Inaction can be just as bad as too much action or unfair action in any direction. So can inaction be an unacceptable outcome to the community. And at the same point, we want the staff time needs to be less than 24 hours per week on average, because that is basically what we as a community have set aside to quickly and efficiently deliver the bylaws that we have in the town of Prescott. So what's currently happening? Right now we have passive enforcement. This lends to less about community presentation and more about neighborly relations. This leads to a lack of inclusivity because of issues that can lead to higher or lower standards being expected. And I really got to stress this, that the way it works right now, it really is about who gets along with their neighbors, but also it actually unfairly punishes people that may have socioeconomic issues that they can't overcome, being targeted more often than the people that understand basically the way things work and can respond in a way that's more appropriate to lead to less enforcement. Also, the way it's currently set up for our property standards is the only real solution is the court system. Not only is this time consuming, it's expensive. It's also a per use of the legal system, time and resources. The legal systems in Ontario are overworked, and the last thing they need is more stuff being brought there regarding municipal bylaws when there's other resources that can be used to address it. So because of the way it's set up right now, it really leads to a tough ability to confirm if expectations and policies are being followed by not only staff, but by all and on a consistent basis. So like everything else, and I think you've noticed this every time I bring forward something, it's not about any one silver bullet. It's about various different things that we can do to help solve the issues. So a prime example is kind of parking in the north end by the heavy trucks. Numerous steps were taken to solve the issues, which is basically resolved this time. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm lucky to get an email every 2-3 months saying, Sean, this happened last night and it was an issue. Okay, and those steps included more signs in various locations. It included a much larger sign across from the truck center entrance. It included a better visual element. The flashing lights were huge about bringing attention to the people that they couldn't park in there. Okay, adding French to the sign was also huge. And working with all the parties, because I mean, it wasn't just about bylaw going out and doing it. It was about working with the neighbors. It was about working with the businesses that were there. It was about working with every single one to find solutions. And like I said, I'd like to hold this up as an area where I think we've done a fairly decent job. So the intent is to do the same thing within the bylaw department. In fact, it's already started. We've had the software upgrades, which is going much better to being able to quickly pull when we've been to a property more often and how many times in relation to the same issue. We've already made, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. We've already made bylaw changes in and for signs, animal control, parking, etc. So what's the next steps? Property standards in general is adequately written in terms of the expectations of the conditions of a property. But what is not so capable is the compliance systems. The current timeframes are a burden to obtain an actual compliance in a community acceptable timeframe and extremely expensive for the gains that are created through taking everything to the courts under a Provincial Offences Act Part 3 summons. So there's a lot of ways that we can solve this. One of the things that the municipalities have had now for quite a few years, well, 2000, just a little over a decade now, is that they are allowed to bring in a monetary administrative policy system. Think of it kind of like setting up your own small arbitrator, or I don't want to call it a court, but a small system within the town. There are conditions upon whom can be used. So for example, it can't be the mayor that's here's the concern, but it could be a senior staff member. If they don't feel that bylaw has been fair, they can take it to another senior staff member. Or even if that doesn't work, they can even take it to a step above that, which it's no staff members whatsoever. It's a small group of people that are put together that can be called at a moment's notice. They can feel whether or not the bylaw officer or staff might have some sort of outside vendetta, or maybe that there's something that they're not understanding that's deep behind the reason why it can't be reviewed. It helps cover the cost. This system helps cover the cost more economically. And this lessens the burden on the taxpayer. It means that we're not using lawyers. It means that we're not using the court times. It means that we're not going down and having the Part 3 summons sworn out in front of the justice of the peace. And it also helps refocus staff's time for more on the street versus in the office. Every time we take something to court, hours and hours and hours are spent preparing for that versus spending it on the street. One of the other things that we can add to our property standards bylaw is a vacant building registry. By documenting and charging an appropriate fee, it can help make sure the community stays safe by having a more complete and accurate condition of vacant buildings, which can quickly become a safety issue. This registry will encourage utilization of buildings versus allowing them to remain vacant. It'll also help with scheduling and allotting of staff times because it becomes something that's repetitive. It's put into a system that spits out when we need to go and stuff like that. And it also allows the town and the people that own the buildings to market the available space more efficiently as well, because they're keeping up a building now that will be kept up to minimum standards. there's no doubt we need a few little things in the property standards itself. I'd like to see clearer definitions of acceptable items in a yard and the length of time that they can remain. I'd like a clearer policy to speed up resolutions by creating timelines for not just the first time issue, but by declaring situations that would trigger a habitual policy. The way our property standards is currently set up, if we get called that someone has an issue that there's too much garbage collecting on a property, staff goes out. We have a minimum time frame that we have to advise them they have to clean it up. They clean it up, but 2 weeks later, they brought a whole new pile of stuff in, and you're starting again from scratch. So by the new software system shows where we have policies and we can document it so that when it starts again, they're starting behind not the person, but the time frames are reduced, saying, look, you've been warned about this before in the past and it can't continue. So before, where you might have had 30 days to clean it up, now it's going to be more like 15 or quicker. Okay, and the nice thing is, by doing an administrative monetary policy, we can actually make sure that it's not about being punitive. It's just about collecting the cost for reimbursement. It's you know, if we had to send in staff to clean up a situation, it's about making sure that time was covered. Now, we have to accept certain things though. Okay. We have to actually provide a little help occasionally too when it's needed. There's certain people that are affected by various socio-economical factors. And they're not served if all we do is create an undue burden on them that is unlikely to ever be solved. So I like to say you can't get blood from a stone, but you do have to actually figure it out and document it and try to keep it economically viable. And we have to remember that just because we get someone out of one location, if they move to another location within the town, it doesn't necessarily help the problem. It may actually make it worse. So for example, if someone was in their own small house, is anything served by forcing them almost into an apartment type situation where they actually have even neighbors closer? But we still have to remember about the people that live around them, and we have to find a way to solve the problems quickly. So by doing this, when we set up things where we set up a little bit of things to help people like Youth Connect or Leads Victim Services or mental health, all that, we're actually being assistive versus punitive. And it will help keep Prescott staying the vibrant community it is with a wealth of all different types of people within the community. Don't get me wrong, this is just the thought. So the thought is to revamp the property standards bylaw, to bring in an administrative monetary bylaw, which can be applied not just to property standards, but it could be added to things like, you know, it's just a simple note that it can be used for like various things like the sign bylaw, if we had to take one down, or animal control and stuff like that. And each one would be decided upon as it comes up. And then inside the property standards bylaw to have a vacant building registry. This could be done as a separate bylaw or one together. My thought is to try to consolidate it just so that you find everything in one location, so that again, you're not jumping all over the place. And that's where we're at right now. Through you, Your Worship, I'm more than happy to take some questions. I can tell you it has been shared with other members of staff at the township here. And so far, it seems like a way to make it work. This is a system that is used in other municipalities. One of the closest ones to us is Prince Edward County, which is kind of a single tier large municipality over near Picton. And then of course it's also used by some places in South Dungas, Glengarry. And I can also tell you that Gananoque is actually who I first was working this with, because they are considering bringing it forward as well. So, and that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks very much, Sean. Geez, you're about to lose your voice entirely there. Boy, if we only we could make this happen on some of your other reports, boy, could really shorten some of our meetings. But no, thanks a lot for that. That was very informative. I'll open it up, everyone for comments, questions in a moment. If you could just, yeah, there you go. Excellent. One comment I did have though on that monetary administrative policy in the system. Can you give us an example of how that would work? Like, say for example, somebody hasn't cut their grass in a month. There's been a complaint made. How does it differ from the standard situation, or would it only come into play on more serious things that involve POA fines and so on?
No, it could technically come in. The big thing to remember is this system, like the way it is right now, we basically get the people to agree that it's okay for us to go on and cut the grass for them and apply it to the tax thing. This is for the people that might, and we've been very fortunate. We haven't had a whole lot where people have said no, but we've had it occasionally where they're saying, no, stay off our property. You have no right to be here. And then at that point, we actually have to go to court to get permission to go on. Don't get me wrong. We were still going to maintain the same approach of talking to people first. But the way this approach would work now is, say we met someone that really didn't want us on there, and they're convinced that the bylaw officers are picking on them, that the grass really is an acceptable length, or there could be a million different reasons. And I'm not going to say what the reasons are, because they would have to decide what their arguments are. They simply notify us that they wish to fight it. When they wish to fight it, it goes to the first stage of arbitration. Now, that first stage can either be someone that's assigned from the community to hear it, or it could be a senior staff member. So, for example, it could be, and not that I want to add more stuff to his, but it could be maybe Matthew or Nathan or Lindsay, but it could be a senior staff member. And they hear the arguments on both sides. And they simply make a ruling based on common sense as they proceed. Now, if the person still doesn't like it, they can still appeal it higher. And at this point, it can't be any staff members whatsoever, and it must be members from the community that hear it. And again, they go in with their same arguments. But the difference is when you go to court to do this, just to get a court in front of the first JP may take anywhere from 3 months to a year. Okay, if one of them hires a lawyer, it can quickly become 2 years before you're in court to explain the same thing. This here just speeds up the process. In the process of a month to maybe 2 months, it's been dealt with, the decision's been made. We go on and we deal with it, and we go on from there. It's not, like I say, it's just about actually relieving the burden from the court systems for something that really probably didn't belong in the court systems to begin with.
Would the resident not have the option of moving it to the court system at some point, though, if they weren't?
Actually, as long as, you see, they would have the right to take us to court later if they disagreed with it, but it's then on their burden to take us versus on our burden to take them. And the thing is, the courts have found very clearly that natural person powers exist in the municipality, including the right to decide what's the proper standard of care for things like property standards, animal control, various other structures. Like I said, this is not something that will be drafted just by me myself. It will be certainly passed on through our solicitors to make sure that it matches all the things that are required. And like I said, I hope it does two things. It speeds up the habitual problems, and it also speeds up when someone decides, because like I said, even right now, even if the person decides that they're wrong, once it starts in the court system, we can't just pull it out. We have to let it go through the system. This here just speeds up the process for so many more people all the way around, because sometimes people don't want to deal with this for a couple of years neither.
Well, it sounds good. It's just not something, I know you and I discussed it a bit, and I think I talked about it with Matthew a little bit as well. just trying to get my head around how it would actually work. It sounds like an excellent way, and any way you can completely depoliticize this and get it out to a neutral ground. I even wonder if there was a way, like with what we're doing with Augusta, maybe there's a way if they were to operate under the same policy, they could look at ours and we could look at theirs. So like once you get to that certain point, so that way no one can complain that there's any bias coming out of either municipal building. But I just mentioned, I don't even know if that's doable or not, but it does seem intriguing. I'm just curious about how it would work. I see Councillor Shankar had his hand up for a question.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Todd. So through you, Sean, I love the changes that you're making all the way back from the last couple of years. You've been working really hard, making good changes. I like them. A couple of questions I have for you. The example that you gave about cutting the person's lawn and then adding it to the taxes, is that a little more complicated when the property is a rental?
Through you, Mayor Todd. Actually, no. Don't get me wrong. We notify both the tenant and the owner that there's an issue. And like I said, in the past, often we have had good success convincing the person, because there could be, like, as I like to say, we're there to help people too. If your lawnmower is broke down and you're a landlord from Toronto and it's tough for you to find someone, we're more than happy to take care of the issue until you can get your lawnmower fixed so that the guy can do it. But we don't want it to grow 3 feet tall until then. So yeah, rental issues provide their own aspects, but it really doesn't change anything. It's still the owner that would be responsible for the costs. And the owner's also responsible for the tenant. And they made a choice with whom they rented to.
Gotcha. And the second part of my question is most of bylaw complaint driven?
Absolutely everything is at this point other than parking.
Okay. Is there going to come a point, sorry, I guess there's a third question. Is there going to come a point where there's more, you're a bit more proactive in terms of, and I know you've done this before, like walking around and observing and then, knocking on doors, etc.
Yeah. Going down this route, my thought is that in time, we slowly, if we see something wrong, I think it's almost wrong to ignore it in terms of, especially when it comes to unsafe yards. I don't get too excited about a lot of things, but when we see something and I think we can create a policy that's fairly clear. Matthew had probably the best term for it, and I'm going to mess it up. I know I am, but it's about being an observational enforcement versus, you're not going out to peek in backyards to see things. You're not going out to, but you are going beyond just the complaint-driven issues. We had one on, I don't want to give an address, but one the other day where I think it was about 40 people signed a sheet to bring it into the town about a property. This is a town staff knew about, but we really couldn't do much until we had one concern. Now, don't get me wrong, 32 signatures is much better than one. But at the same point, we needed that first thing. And this would have been something that we could have addressed if we had a little bit more leeway when we notice something that's really out, like I say, out beyond the norm. Did that answer it? I hope it did.
No, that's good. I'm glad you guys are working on that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shankar. Open it up for all members of council. Comments, questions. Councillor Burton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Sean, I think these are excellent changes to the policy and the vacant building registry. I love that idea. I think we can definitely work closer to the owners of those buildings. I do think it's important as well. You said in your presentation, the clear language, and I think that's important for all of our policies to be clear language for a grade 5 student if they wanted to read the bylaw before they went to bed at night. But you know, something simple like that. I think that's clear, because it'd be easier to understand. But I do like all the changes that you are presenting us tonight. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. See Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. The registry, Sean, it is a good idea. But I assume it wouldn't start with the first month of vacancy. It might be 2 or 3 months before a building makes it onto this registry. It's the long-term ones that we're concerned about, right?
Through you, Your Worship, Mayor Todd. Yeah, no, there's certainly going to be a lead-in. My thought was 6 months, but I mean, we can certainly do 3 months if that's more the direction of staff or the staff of council. And the other nice thing is the wording that I've read of the places that have done it, there's actually a thing there where if they start doing massive renovations on it in order to get it ready to thing, it can actually be considered to be, you know, use the fees towards the building permit or whatever the case may be for that first year or whatnot. Like I said, the whole concept is to get the properties back in circulation, get it back in reuse. It's not about being punitive, but it is also about safety, because the fire department and me have talked about this a lot, and it's amazing how quickly buildings can go downhill when they're left vacant. And it is important that them and I are in it on a fairly regular basis so that we can at least be aware of how quickly it's degenerating, even if they don't want to do something with it. But I'm hoping this registry will encourage people to keep their buildings full.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Any further comments, questions for Mr. Merriman this evening? Okay, it looks like we're pretty much through. The one closing comment I would have, what's our timeline on this, Sean? When will we start seeing, you know, what we're looking towards the final stages and what we're going to be asked to adopt here?
Well, the first thing was getting through this evening to make sure that at least council, at least, you know, felt that it was an appropriate way to go. My goal is to bring back a new report to you that's a lot more specific with examples and, you know, basically the first language of it. I don't think I'll make June, but I think I can make July if that works with Matthew. We still have one meeting in July, do we not, Matthew? Yeah. I might, because do we have 2 in June?
Yes.
I might get June, but it would be tough.
Well, I don't think we want to get it right. So that's the most important part of this, although it's important to get this done as, you know, in an expedited fashion, but this is moving along well. It seems. If anyone has any further concerns, of course, please contact Sean. Any feedback, anything at all with regards to what was presented tonight, or any other observations you have about bylaw enforcement, property standards in the town of Prescott. I'm sure Sean would be happy to hear them, as would Matthew, who's got his hand up now, looking to solicit all those comments and questions. Matt, what did you have?
Yep. So if we can get a draft in front of council in the July meeting, then we can incorporate feedback for the August meeting, and then it'd be great if we can get this rolled out for sometime starting in September. So if we think about that in the logical fashion, then draft another review and then roll out in September, and that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. I think the one thing we do want to put out there and want to consider, because we did kind of get our knuckles wrapped on the pet bylaw, maybe there's a phase-in period, a lot of public education on what the changes are, so people don't misinterpret this as, you know, some sort of power grab or anything to expedite fines and get around the court system, because that's clearly not the case. You know, the idea is to make the system more efficient and be fairer to people, not less. So we just got to make sure we communicate that, because we obviously have one example not too far in our rearview mirror that we might have tried to move a little bit too quickly on that, but it all worked out in the end. So okay, we'll leave that for this evening, but anyone has any comments, questions, please refer them to Mr. Merriman, and we'll look at those, the timelines that Mr. Armstrong mentioned, and we'll get this back over the summer months and hopefully approve it not long after Labor Day. Thanks again, Sean, for the great presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, and on to 12.3, that's staff report 45-2021. That's the financial report for April. Recommendation, this is just for information. Matthew, did you want to hit on any highlights there? Anything that really stands out this evening you'd like to bring to council's attention?
So just a couple of highlights, which I think I mentioned in the report. So obviously we get the first part of the year, our half of our property taxes, and so we would expect to be ahead at this point. The second half of the year, we don't collect them until August and October. The other part that I want to mention about revenue is recreation and culture. It definitely comes in during the marina months of June, July, and August. So no concern at this point that we're behind on that. When we take a look at on the expense side, transportation obviously has a fairly large surplus from the expense side, but that's simply because of the timing of paving, and we just simply take the budget divided by 12 versus actually, and the timing will be, I think they did their shaving today, and the expected repaving will be next week. So we expect the bill in the May, June timeframe. And then obviously the other one is the recreation and culture being again behind in expenses, but that's largely due to the marina picking up in June, July, and August. The final one that I wanted to point out is that we're always 3 months behind in water and sewer revenue. And so that's why you're seeing the significant deficit in that area. That being said, I am happy to report at the end of April, the investment in the equity fund is doing quite well so far this year. In the first 4 months, I believe it was in excess of $150,000 in revenue. May is a little bit of a retreat from that, but certainly not what we saw last year at the beginning of COVID, where at one point we were definitely in a negative. So that continues to grow and be a positive. And I think that's what I have for this evening's announcement. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Matt. Open it up for comments, questions for Mr. Armstrong tonight. Councillor Jansman.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Thank you, Matthew. That you answered my question. Really, I was curious about the equity funds, and because last year we took it, like everybody took a killing. So that's really, really good news. So I'm happy you brought that up. Just a stupid observation comment. Not stupid, but minor, I guess. I'm almost surprised that the garbage bag sales are lower than expected with people mostly working from home and such. But is that comparable to last year?
So if we go back 2 years ago, we're pretty close to where we were 2 years ago. When we're compared to last year, we saw definitely an uptake in that, and we increased the budget to offset that. So we've noticed that it's a little bit behind, not a lot. But certainly that was just one of the notations when I was looking through the variances. To be of an ebb and flow, it certainly with occasions and that sort of thing, that it tends to increase. But certainly we'll just keep an eye on that and make sure that we're moving on. That being said, if we're picking up less garbage, then there's less tipping fees per ton. So there is a bit of an offset.
As long as people aren't putting it elsewhere, that's always a consideration too, I guess. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jansman. Other comments, questions for Mr. Armstrong this evening? Seeing none, so we'll move along to item 12.4 in the agenda. That's another report for information only. It's staff report 46-2021 project updates. Any highlights on that you'd like to cover, Matt, this evening, or Nathan?
I'll take a crack at some of them, just some of the highlights. So the pool pump and filter is done. And one of the things that we'll add for our next report is kind of an actual column, just to show for those completed reports or completed projects how we're proceeding. So that's good. Dibble Street East reconstruction obviously is a big project for this year, and they're moving along. There's a number of ones in the kind of ongoing. I provided a little bit of an update on the recreation complex. Contractor pre-qualification went out basically the day after the announcement with the federal and provincial government, and that is due back this week. We'll have approximately 2 weeks to go through the pre-qualification, and then those that are contractors that are pre-qualified will get the plans on June 7th. And then from there, they have about a month to do their calculations, and then we should hear back from them in early July and be able to award the contract sometime in July. So certainly we're moving in the right direction on that, and happy to do so. I included a couple of other projects in there that the official plan that we shouldn't lose sight of: the joint economic study and land use, regional transit, which is coming along. Some of those types of things, asset management plan. And then certainly we're also taking a look at requests for proposals. I believe the Edward Street Bridge should be out, the RFP this week or next. It's a fairly specialized project, so not too concerned about the timing of the year. When we went and talked to dock builders, they suggested actually putting the order in the fall. And so I think our intention is to create the RFP, put the order in this fall for HDock as well as the next worst dock. And so that both of them would be received in the spring of 2022 and be installed. And then we just continue that same process, RFP in the summer, award in the fall, and then have a new dock floated in each spring. So downtown beautification plan RFP will be released in June, and then we look forward to working through that with council and our community members. And then there's quite a few items that we're still working through, mostly smaller type projects for anything from adding non-motorized docks to the gazebo shelters or shade structures, installing heritage lights. And so just continuing to work through those. And certainly the list is quite extensive. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions on any one individual.
Thanks very much, Mr. Armstrong. Open it up for comments, questions from members of council on that update this evening. Councillor Jansman, then Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Matthew, thank you for this list. And my first, I just have to share this, my first knee-jerk reaction when I saw all the projects and the activity on all the projects in this format, it was just, wow. It just, for our small town and for our tax base, I just wish all the negative people that are on, the very few negative people, but they speak a lot on social media. I wish they could see this, because it's something to really celebrate. So anyway, I just had to get that rant out. So thank you, that's great. And last year we put in 2 new play swing sets, one in Thader's division and one by the golf club here, which seem to be, the times I drive by seems to be used and everything, so that's great. But the old swing set frames are still there. Is that on the radar for them to be removed?
Absolutely. So I'm just trying to figure out how we get them out of the ground without making a great big mess. And so, but they absolutely are on the radar of something that we need to remove this year. And whether that's actually cutting them apart and removing them, or some other method, then certainly we have that.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jansman. Just as a way to get this out there, we do that newsletter after every meeting. Can we make sure that we include this whole list on a page in the newsletter, just to get it all out there so we can refer residents back to this, because we do get complaints about items on here and comments, and being able to refer them directly to that. Not that it's going to stop anyone from complaining on Facebook, but at least we've got some explanation. Councillor Young and then Councillor Shankar, please.
Thank you. This is not about the list, but it is a question to Nathan. There was a large piece of equipment running down the middle of Dibble Street today. with the Tomlinson truck in front of it. What is that doing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Young. So that was the contract for Miller's Excavating. They actually, so when they do the road repaving, they actually do contract out the road removal, the milling of the asphalt through to Tomlinson. And then, so that was all done today on all the sections that were approved. And then in probably about a week's time, they'll start the repaving, and that will actually be through machinery from Tackerberry. All that equipment is very expensive, and you kind of have to be using it all the time in order to make it financially viable to have it in your fleet. So they do subcontract that work out.
Okay, so that was a measurement wheel that was down on the pavement?
Yeah, so it would have been a milling machine. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ray. Councillor Shankar, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Matthew, I love this update. Okay, I mean, I know you got a lot on your plate, but I think this is fantastic. I even think I like the idea about putting in a newsletter, but even a link on our website, that people can click, boom, here it is. I really like the transparency of it. It shows people will stop probably Councillor McConnell every day on his walk and ask him a question. This is easy for him now. He can just say, boom, check it out on the website, Same thing happens to the rest of us. It's a small town. The one thing I'd like to see, if it's not too much, I know this is all planned for 2021, but maybe and this might be a little hard, but maybe an expected completion date or time, or month, just because I don't want to see anything get lost. Sometimes we have, and Teresa said it best, there's a ton going on in this town. There's a ton that we're into this little town, and you don't want to miss anything. And this way, this keeps us all abreast of it, and we all know what's going on, when it's going on, and how it's going on. So I really like this.
Yeah. So just a couple points. One, we are expecting to bring this back on a monthly basis, when we're thinking about the second meeting of every month. More than happy to do that. We might put it in the consent agenda, and so that way it kind of just flows nice and easy. But yeah, we're more than happy to do this. As I mentioned, we'll add another column for those that are completed to show exactly how much we ended up spending versus the budget. So so you're able to measure on that, and yeah, with the understanding that best guess on completion is what we'll aim for, and then see how it kind of progresses from there. So yeah, we're more than happy to do that, and I think including it in the newsletter as well as a link on our website is fantastic, and we want the residents of the town to be just as proud as we are of the work that gets done. So the more that we can share, then the better.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shankar. Thanks, Matthew. Other comments, questions from members of council this evening? Councillor McConnell, please.
I'd like to thank Councillor Shankar for referencing my daily walk. One of the things I noticed on my daily walk was one of the things I asked for when we were doing some work down in Kelly's Beach, and that was to make a spot for dogs to access the water a little farther along the shore. I noticed last week, I guess, they took some of those big cement slabs and laid them end to end from the grass down into the water. And I've already seen dogs using it and had compliments towards the town for doing that. I thought that was a great idea. So that's one of the things I've noticed on my daily walk. And of course, I've been watching Kelly's Beach progress as well. They spent 3 days in that set of steps down there, a lot of time. They're over at the far side now, trying to bury that pipe that keeps getting exposed. We'll see how that turns out. But we've also had good comments on the steps. And so I'm happy with what I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McConnell. Comments from anyone else on the list this evening? Councillor Ostrander.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to reiterate the other comments about publicizing this list, I think that's a great idea. Not that it's gonna solve anything for us immediately, but at least the public's gonna have some idea of just how many items that we're working on. I don't think sometimes they have a concept of, it's not just 2 and 3 things we're working on, it's 15 or 20. And I think that would maybe help them understand that some things aren't getting done yesterday or tomorrow or next week, and they just need some understanding on that. And I just think it's better. It's more optics for us, and it's more optics for staff and everything that we get something like that out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Ostrander. Further comments, questions this evening from members of council? Just a couple real quick ones. I just did want to note also, I was going to mention the new dog ramp going into the river. I know we used to have, when I had a dog that liked to swim, which was quite a number of years ago now, there was a kind of a concrete form down there, and I don't know why that got removed, but it was perfect for dogs being able to enter the water. And I kind of complained to Public Works on and off Lake Lee over the years, and it's nice to see that's been brought back now. But unfortunately, I've got a new dog and he hates the water pretty much as the last one. So I'm not sure I'm going to get much use out of it with mine, but hopefully others will. It's a really nice little spot down there. Although, of course, right now we have the water levels are still so low that it's still a little tricky down there. Hopefully it will continue to come up. But I just did want to make a comment. It's not exactly connected to this. But I did want to thank staff here as well for something, and I won't get into the specifics of it, but I had an issue with a longtime downtown store owner, or I should say commercial owner. It's not a store, but that came up last week a couple of evenings, and it was even raised again on a Friday night. And I thought it was important enough that I send it off to staff. And the attention to detail we're getting from staff right now is spectacular. I sent it on to Nathan and Matthew, and Bob Dixon got a hold of it as well. And the issue was corrected on Saturday morning. And it was very important for the property owner, who has been a big part of our downtown for many decades. And I just wanted to thank staff for doing that. It's the kind of thing that the general public doesn't see, but we do behind the scenes. The effort that's being made on behalf of our operations staff. And that was just something that I know the property owner greatly appreciated. I greatly appreciated. And I just wanted to make sure to thank staff on that, because you see it with some of these, there's some that are small items, some are big items, but these projects, you're seeing a lot of these things happening, and there's real evidence in the streets. But in terms of regular maintenance and just taking care of our residents and ratepayers, I think we're doing an excellent job there as well. So I did want to mention that, because that was greatly appreciated, the extra work that went into resolving this issue by the downtown commercial owner. So hats off to our staff. So if we can just get this publicized as best as possible, website, newsletter, and so forth, let people know what great things we have happening here. And that sounds good, Matthew, on a regular basis to the consent agenda, so everyone can get a look at this and just bring our attention if there's any dramatic changes or anything's come up, of course, with RFPs and that, as I know you will. So thanks very much for that this evening. And if I can. And we are on to item 13, resolutions, none this evening. 14, bylaws, none this evening either. 15, new business. Does any member of council have any new business to bring forward tonight? Seeing no. Under 16, notices of motion. Does any member of council have a notice of motion to bring forward this evening? Seeing no also. And 17, mayor's proclamations. And we do have one proclamation this evening for Pride Month for June 2021. I'm very happy to proclaim June as Pride Month again here in Prescott. Unfortunately, we're still under COVID, so I don't think there's going to be a great number of public events we'll be able to hold. But the proclamation, of course, reads as follows: whereas there is a necessity to actively support lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, two-spirited, queer, and all other sexual orientation and gender identities to be celebrated and supported as full and equal members of our community. And whereas the town of Prescott recognizes that diversity is a vital and integral part of our community that is celebrated and strengthens our town, and that we should take pride in our identities and never feel we must hide who we are at work, school, or within our families and communities. And whereas the intent of the pride flag being raised at Town Hall and at the water fountain area is to show support for the rainbow community and show the commitment of the town of Prescott to providing a safe and welcoming place that improves the overall quality of life for all members. We look forward to the town of Prescott and its community members as being and fulfilling their title as ambassadors and leaders, and we strive for equality in Ontario, Canada, and even more broadly, the world. Therefore, I, Mayor Brett Todd, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2021 as Pride Month in the town of Prescott and encourage all citizens to take pride in our diversity and celebrate our differences to help make our town a place we can all be proud to call home. And that's, of course, dated today, the 17th of May, 2021, here in the town of Prescott. We will provide further information in terms of flag raising ceremonies and so forth when we can do so. Obviously, we are under lockdown now, but June 2nd, things are hopefully opening up. So it'd be nice to have some sort of public ceremony like we were able to do last year. So we'll have more information from staff on how we're going to deal with this and also work with the COVID restrictions at the same time. And under 18, closed session tonight, we do have a couple of items under the closed session. So the recommendation reads that council move into closed session at 7:42 p.m. to address matters pertaining to 18.1, approval of closed session minutes, 18.2, purchase and sale. That's under section 239, 2C of the Municipal Act, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And we're also asking that the CAO, clerk, interim director of operations, economic development officer, and deputy clerk remain in the room. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Ostrander, seconded by Councilor Young. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. If everyone's okay, as soon as we go off our live feed, we'll continue right into this, or does anyone want a brief recess? Okay, sounds good. So we'll